Cheers, dude. Here we
What's
go. We're
up?
live.
Cheers.
How's
Oh,
that?
I actually have something that you might like. I think I told you about it. I made a peach infused, or I guess a brandy infused peach, or whichever way you say it. And I let it sit in my fridge for 6 days. And
Six
guess what?
days.
I forgot about it. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Didn't taste like peaches.
Mm-hmm. Was it bad?
No, it was good. I added like Schweppes makes like a peach flavored seltzer. So I added that and it tasted.
Where's where's Schweppes is where are they based out of? Because I don't really see so much of them in America.
To be
Are they
honest,
an American company?
Rehovot.
Oh, really? They're Israeli?
I have a bottle right now in my hand, and it says I don't know if it's the manufacturing is out of Rehovot, but there's no other country on here, and it says Rehovot.
That's really cool. Were you able to hear that airplane passing you, by the way?
I was, but it didn't bother me first. It didn't ruin the quote unquote ambiance. It added to the atmosphere.
Cool. Okay, good. Because it happens pretty frequently. We're at my in-laws now, and they live down the block from Fort Lauderdale Airport.
Mm.
So there's airplanes, and I'm smoking a cigar outside in 90-degree weather.
The vibe. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's a, what do you call it? That Florida mugginess that we love.
I love it. The healthy sweat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love me a good healthy sweat. Israel doesn't really
See,
have healthy sweats. They just have disgusting sweats.
well, no, that's not true. If people use deodorant more there, then then it would be a totally healthy sweat.
But I'm just like, it's one thing, because here's the thing. In Israel, a lot of people walk to work. And in America, everyone usually drives to
No,
work.
don't justify. Don't try to justify it, dude. If you use deodorant, you're good to go.
No, but come on, when you have your backpack slapped onto your back and you're walking through, it's not nice. Listen,
Right.
I have a 12-minute walk to work. Thank God I have a
Yeah.
12-minute walk to work. But again, in those 12 minutes, in 90%
A
humidity,
lot could go wrong. A lot could go
a lot
wrong.
can go wrong really fast. Karen has
Yeah.
a very funny thing. It's like maximum sweat, minimum time.
Yeah. I hear that. I hear that. So you have your peach. You have your peach drink.
I do have my peach trick in my hand. L'chaim, dude.
All right, brother. Cheers. L'chaim.
Cheers.
I got some smoky lagavulin over here.
Whoa, fancy pants. What year?
Ooh, 16. I bought it for my
Oh,
dad in well, it's a standard one. The more expensive ones are actually the older the younger ones, like 11
really?
year or the 8 year. Yeah. I'm not really sure why. I guess A, because of availability. Like I think
Right.
they just make them less often. And then B because they do all these weird cask things to them to
Mm,
create this new flavor that they don't do with the original. But I mean, I got it in duty free. I think usually it's like $120 for a bottle. I think I got
mm-hmm.
two for like 180 or something like that.
It's really
Um,
good.
yeah, which I was very happy. So I bought one for my dad on my way back from. I think I was in Ireland actually. I was in duty free on the way back from Ireland on my honeymoon, and I bought it for
Mm,
my dad, and then I just never brought it back down to him. It's been to my in-laws, so no one drinks smoky scotch here, so it's not really getting touched very often.
right.
But there's still about half bottle left, and
It's nice.
um, hmm it's great. So, dude, I wanted to tell you about this experience that we had yesterday, dude.
Yeah, I've been waiting to hear it.
hmm Okay, so what happened was our buddy Sammy. I haven't really seen all summer. He's been running around. He's been going. He's been doing different things. He just got. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life right now. And I didn't really get to hang out with him. And he texted me uh, on what did he say? Wednesday. He texted me on Monday night, or Monday evening. When are you going back to Florida? I said tomorrow.
Which
He
Sammy
said,
is this?
Sammy Kleiman.
Oh,
Hmm?
no,
So
I just wasn't sure which Sammy are.
yeah.
It's like we don't really have any other Sammy. Like you could be talking to someone else.
hmm So he goes, "Do you want to go see Deadpool?" I was like, "I saw it already, but I'd love to see it again." Totally fine with that. Um, so we go. So he goes, "Okay," and then he says, "I just saw that this dispensary opened 2 minutes in the Palisades Mall. We should stop by there beforehand." Um, Now it's really cool because until now the only dispensary that was in the area was or is was a medical one, and this one's completely recreational.
Cool.
So we walk in, everyone there is just like the stereotypical dispensary personality, right? You know, as stoner typical as you could get, right? And like a
Yeah.
group of people working behind a counter. Yeah, it's great. It's very funny.
I love it.
So, and I was, and I was already. I walked in. It's all good vibes. I'm like, yo, so so happy you guys are here. They're like, I know it's been forever. It's also cool, by the way, to see who walks. It's also talk about come together. It's so cool to see the type of people that walk into dispensary. You got guys in business suits that are coming back from their job at banks or law firms. You got
Yeah.
old hippie guys. You got young kids. You got guys and girls in sweatshirts and hoodies, and like typical like sneaking around teenagers. You got like everything in between. It's so
What's
funny to
the
just see the type of
age?
crowd. You have to be 21. They're very strict about it, actually. Um, so anyway, so we're in the car, um, and I'm wearing basketball shorts for the movie. I'm wearing a hoodie and basketball shorts, and we're in the I'm in the car. I buy a pre roll, and and we get back in the car, and I put everything. I put my wallet down, and for some reason, I don't now I don't remember exactly, and it wasn't I didn't even smoke at this point, but I don't even remember exactly why. But my ID ended up. I think I took my ID because I thought that I might have needed it for the movie ticket for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, towards the end of the movie,
Okay.
I feel around my pockets and my ID is missing. Um,
Oh no.
yeah. So we're looking around. It's not in the movie theater seats. I'm like, maybe maybe it's in the car. We go back to the car. It's not in the car. So I go to and we stopped in Target to get movie theater snacks along the way. So
Good
the next
move.
day, it's kind of bothering me. I'm a little nervous I'm going to get my identity stolen, and and he calls me back, and so the next day, I'm just so next day we're flying back to Florida. We're at
Right.
my parents' house. It's a 50-minute drive on average, maybe an hour to get to Newark Airport, right? My mom
Yeah.
tells me our flight's at 6 p.m. My mom tells me she wants to leave at 3:30. Like 3:30? She's like, yeah, well, there might be traffic. Like, there's never traffic, whatever. Okay,
Very
like
unHirschman
3:30.
of her.
Yeah, 3:30 gets us there at 4:30. Now that means we're getting there an hour and a half before a regular domestic flight. I'm like,
Hmm.
it sounds a little early, but whatever. Okay, I'm happy to, I mean, if that works best with your schedule and she's giving us a ride and she's spending 2 hours in the car, I don't really care. We'll do whatever time you want. So, we're packing up, we're getting everything ready. We've been in New York for 2 months, 3 months, and
Yep, I lost you for that.
we're packing everything up. Yeah, I know. I got a phone call. We're packing
Gotcha.
everything up. I got to New York. So we've been in New York for a couple of months, and I realized it just hits me that I don't think that I brought my ID into the movie theater at all. Right? Like
Oh,
I was just thinking about it because Sammy wanted to get a beer while we were in the movie theater,
okay.
and or no, while we were in Target, and I was like, nah, I don't have my ID on me. Um, so I know that happened, and then we went straight to the movie, right? So
Hmm.
so around 3 o'clock or 2:55, I call the dispensary and I say, hi, my name's Ephraim Hirschman, Ephraim. Do you have my ID? They're like, hang on, let me check.
They're like,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa,
yeah, you left
slow
your ID here.
down. They're like, slow down, man. Spell it slower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. On their own supply, dude. And um, so I'm like, like, yeah, we have it. I said, sweet. I'm gonna come by and pick it up. So now it's 3 o'clock. The drive's 20 minutes each way. Right?
Wow, okay.
I jump in the car. I fly over. I walk in. Oh, sir, how's it going? Good. Okay, I left my ID. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, we just spoke to you on the phone. Let's go get our manager because our manager has it, and he has to just make sure that you're the right person. Okay, get the manager, and they go, "Oh no, sir, it wasn't yours." And I'm like,
What?
I was like, "What kind of stoned douchebag tells he listens to someone spell out their name, confirm that they have their ID, and then says, "Oh, never mind, it was the wrong person." How would you even confuse the two? Like I spelled it for you, But I was like, whatever. I got to get back to the airport. So run back.
Wow.
So get in the car, race back home. 3:40. Run in, go to the bathroom. We're on the road 3:45. I put on my GPS to try to find out because there's a couple of ways that you can go to Newark Airport. The GPS says the fastest way to get there gets us there at 5:15. It's 3:45, right?
When's
It's
your
usually an
flight?
hour. It's usually an hour drive. What?
When's your flight again?
6 o'clock.
That's like pushing it.
I know, and we're checking a bag, right? We're checking a bag too. So we have a baby. We have a baby. We're checking a bag. We have our stuff. We're getting to the airport 45 minutes before the flight. I'm like, I don't like this, but so we start racing over there. I'm flying I'm flying for the parts that I could fly that aren't standstill traffic, right?
Right.
And along the way, Rachel, messages United and says, "Hey, we have this flight, but we're not sure if we're going to make it. Is there another flight today?" They say, "Oh, I see that there's an 8:30 flight, right?" She
Right.
doesn't say that she wants to get on it yet. She just wants to know what her options are. They say, "Okay, let me see the options," and then they respond a minute later. "Okay, we rebooked you for 8:30."
Well,
I'm like, wait, I didn't want to be rebooked yet. Like, I don't know what I still might make the 6 o'clock flight. Now, again, we have a 1.5-year-old baby with us that
right.
the difference between flying from 6 to 9 and the difference between flying from 8:30 to 11:30 is enormous.
It's a
In the
week of
way that he
sleep.
behaves, in the way that he's gonna, whether he's gonna sleep, whether he's gonna cry, everything. I'd just rather go earlier.
Right.
So I said, you know what? Let's stick to the 8:30 flight for now. What we'll do is when you get to the airport, I'll check the bag. You'll run through security, and then you'll try to get to the gate by the 6 o'clock flight. Tell them what happened. Hopefully, they have room for us on the plane, and we'll be able to go. We'll be
That
able
is
to get on, and then,
quite
and I was like,
contagious.
it's well, yeah. I mean, we were trying, right? And I said, worst comes to worst. I said, what we'll do is I'll put if our bag gets on the late flight, I'll just go back to the airport a couple hours later if
No
we could get
problem.
on, and I'll just pick up the bag from the airport. Yeah, it's 10 minutes from my in-laws, right?
Yeah.
So, um, so we get to the airport, wrap around line around the airport to get to
Wow.
security, and I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, and then Rachel looks at our tickets and she goes, they did when they rebooked us, they didn't rebook Shua as a
No.
lap infant. So she's like, okay, I have to run to customer service. You check the bag, get in line. I check the bag, get in line. She
Why?
in customer
Wait,
service
why? Do you have to pay
because
for
he
him
needs a
now?
he no, but he technically needs a ticket. We don't pay for him, but he needs a ticket to get on the plane technically or to get through security, right?
Okay.
Just to say that he's our property, right? And
You're still
so
18.
so that's right. So so I go into this. So I drop off our bag. I'm rushing, get into this crazy wraparound line. I'm waiting in line for 10 minutes, and by the way, it usually takes 30 seconds on average, maybe 3 or 4 minutes at like most, from when Rachel starts talking to the airport person till they actually give you, till they're able to print out the ticket, right? So 10 minutes goes by. I'm like, what's going on? I'm waiting in line still. I got Shua with me. I got her bags with me, and she texts me. The guy doesn't know how to print it out. I'm like,
What?
he doesn't know how to print it out. I was like, what's this guy's job? What's his job
What
if
else are
like
they
what's
doing?
yeah, right. So he goes, he keeps on trying to print the ticket and he keeps on printing his name over hours and it's not a valid ticket. I said, okay, so just try to just hurry up, I guess. I'm getting to the front of the line. And at the front of the line, I start waiting, right? I'm with this kid who's squirming around and,
Sure.
jumping around and grabbing, and pointing at people and, making, talking and babbling. And I have my bags with me and I'm standing there just, I'm letting people go past me. And airport security, the person that works there goes, sir, are you waiting for someone? I was like, yeah. She's like, you can't wait. You have to go back to the back of the line again. And I'm like, I was just online for 20 minutes. My wife is coming in a minute. She's like, sir, you can't wait here. So I didn't want to make a big fuss. I didn't want to. I didn't want. It wasn't really worth like. What are you going to get by fighting a airport employee?
Right, like a TSA.
What are you gonna? Yeah. What are you gonna? What are you gonna get?
No
And
way.
you can be mean and you can be obnoxious, but like all it does is just makes just
Everyone's day
makes everyone
worse.
upset. Yeah, exactly. So I go back to Rachel where she's online and she's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, what are you doing here?" I mean, so right now it's like 5:35 ish, right?
Okay.
Our flight's taking off in 25. The flight we wanted to make is taking off in 25 minutes,
Okay.
and we're back at the beginning of the line,
Yeah.
wrap around this security line. So we're like, you know what? We're not gonna take it. We're not gonna make it. We'll just go. It takes us another 45 minutes to get through security,
Wow.
right? So now it's six. Right now it's 6:30, and we walk through the gate. And in the meantime, by the way, I mean, I don't really know whether the airports are understaffed or whether these people are just really, 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 and like not in a mean way, just really, really stupid, or they just don't care. Like it's got to be one of the three. It's either they don't
A
care, it's
hundred
either they're
percent.
stupid, or it's really that they're understaffed. But the way that this operated was just so it's not it wasn't yeah it's backwards, but there's also like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this even with me, I'm sure at some point. Like if someone's like rushing, like you have a couple of people every now and then, like, oh, my flight's taking off in 20 minutes. Do you mind if I just run past you? And you're like, yeah, go ahead. You know,
100%.
like these people were not letting anyone go ahead of them. And
Really?
there's this couple from Ohio that was trying to make their flight to a connecting flight back to Ohio, and no one was. And literally, like they've never been in Jersey before. This is like their first time in New York. They're as rural, right? That's the word.
Yeah. They're corn farmers, let's say. Yes, I'm back. You
One
gotta take
second.
it?
No, she called me. Um,
Who called you?
Rachel. Um,
You're gonna have to edit. You're gonna have to
I'm never
edit.
gonna edit, dude. I'm not editing. I'm not gonna edit until the podcast is big enough that I can hire someone to edit for me because I'm not doing. I'm
You're
not.
a
I'm not.
lazy boy.
I'm not. Yeah, yeah. Whatever. Yes. So so we get so and this guy tapped a female worker on the shoulder to ask, "Hey, excuse me, do you mind if I go? Is there any way you can help me get ahead?" Sir, don't hit me, please. He's like, hit
Are
you?
you kidding me?
He's like, hit you? She's like, sir, I prefer that you use your words rather than hit me if you want to ask me for a favor. And and the guy was like, ma'am, I didn't hit you, but I'm really, really sorry. I did not mean to. I'm running away from I'm about to miss my flight. She's like, okay, I'm sorry. You have to wait in line like everyone else. And that was the end of it, right? So
Wow.
we get to so anyway, so we get to the line. My baby's exhausted. He starts crying. My wife wants him to sleep, so she puts him in the stroller and she has me march around with him until he sleeps. I'm walking around the airport legitimately for an hour. Her phone breaks.
Wow.
Her phone breaks, gets
Free?
stuck. Yeah, gets stuck, like gets stuck on the home screen and doesn't open up. um and
Does she have the tickets on her phone?
no, we have the tickets printed out, but I'm walking around
Okay,
and,
thank
and
God.
her phone's broken. Yeah, of course.
Wow. Okay, so you're walking around aimlessly without her being able to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't really need her to be there for anything. Just the kid's crying, and I don't know
Wait,
what's
you're already.
happening.
Wait,
We're
wait,
in
wait.
there.
I
We're in the
lost you.
airport.
Where are you? You're in the airport, but are you past security?
Yeah, we're past security. It's now say six. Right now it's 6:45. My wife's phone is broken. Work. I just found out that like five things went wrong at work at one time, right? My one of my coworkers gave me the wrong. We opened a new bank account. One of my coworkers gave me the wrong account information that I've been giving my customers for the last week, and so people have been making payments to a wrong account number, which is a huge deal.
Oh no.
It turns out that it's one digit short, so it's been bouncing back rather than going to the wrong
Rather than
person.
going. Yeah.
But it's funny because we're like, I don't really know. I don't know where this money's going. I don't know who's getting what money, Like, you tell me you're paying for this machine. I don't have this machine. I don't have the money. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh boy.
Um, so and then I find out that we have a truck going down to do deliveries in North Carolina, Miami for my customers, and no one bothered to tell me that the truck broke down and didn't move for a day and a
Oh
half. And all my
wow.
customers, I was promising them they have patients coming up, and I was promising them the machine was going to be delivered, and it wasn't, and no one told me that. So all this is happening after while we miss our flight. While we're on this late flight, my wife's phone's broken. It took us 3 hours to get through, from the time we left the house to get through security. I'm in a crappy mood. My wife's in a crappy
Murphy's
mood.
Law.
Yeah, exactly. Murphy's Law. Everything that'll go wrong will. That could go wrong will. My baby's screaming his head off while I'm walking through the airport. I'm trying to get him to go to sleep. And I'm like,
Wow.
this is comical. Like this just, this is just too ridiculous to like not laugh at. Like it's too
You're like,
crazy.
what's next?
What's next? Exactly. And I was thinking, and then they call us. We get to the gate. We're sitting. 8 o'clock comes. We're not boarding yet. Our flight's supposed to take off at 8:30. 8:15 comes. We're not boarding. We're delayed till 9:15. I'm like,
Oh my
oh God,
God.
here we go. So, so
I mean, you have to admit, at least you're not Zach Alexander.
mm, yeah, but
Like Zach.
I think that even so, I think that even Zach at a certain point will have to just like would have to throw his hands in the air and be like, whatever, like whatever happens, I just can't
Oh
do anything
no,
about it.
I mean the there was like two times he wanted to come to Florida. One when Karen and I were pregnant.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Another time I think the flights were canceled, and then he just was there from 6 a.m. to basically 6 p.m. We were there basically a year ago, and
Yeah.
he
No, it
didn't make
was
the
six.
flight.
It was a Friday. It was a Friday morning flight.
It was a
He was
Friday.
in the airport from 5 a.m. till I think 3 or 4 p.m. and he
Yep.
wouldn't have he wouldn't have made it in time for the weekend even.
Which was
So,
great. Which was sad, but
yeah. So anyway, so we get on the plane. Thankfully, the most important like factor I would say out of all these factors is that Shua fell asleep the entire plane ride, and like
nice.
like if everything else went right and he was up screaming for 3 hours on an airplane, I think that like the overall impact of that would have been worse than everything else we went through,
Yeah,
right? But so we're delayed.
100%.
We finally get off. We land in Fort Lauderdale at 12:15, right? 12:30, whatever it is, and
Wow.
a bunch of turbulence on the flight. And you get there, and I'm like, and I go to the check. I go to get our checked bag, and
No,
I'm
don't
like,
tell me.
I'm sitting there waiting. I don't see the bag, and I'm like, there is 0% chance that this bag is coming out of the what do you call it of the carousel,
Wow.
right? The bag does not come out of the carousel. I text my wife who's with the baby, and I'm like, girlfriend, I was like, our bag's not here, and I check the tracking, right? Because they give you like a bag tracker. I
Yeah.
checked the tracking, and it like this has to be the biggest cosmic joke. The bag got onto our original 6 o'clock flight and was
I
sitting in the
can't.
airport for the last 3 hours, dude. Our bag was sitting there
Wow.
waiting for us, and I'm like, this is the funniest thing that's ever happened to me. It is so crazy how much like you try to control and how much you can try to take things into your hand, and whenever these factors that and all the factors that are outside of your control, they end up making those big decisions, and there's just nothing you could do
I'm
about it.
dying.
It is.
That is hilarious.
I couldn't believe it, dude.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it, and it was there, and it was great, but it was just so freaking funny. I could not get over how great that was. Um,
Wow.
but yeah,
And then you got
so
home.
and then we got home, and then my wife realized that she forgot toothbrushes, so I had to run to and milk for the baby. So I had to run to 7-Eleven at 1:30 in the morning,
Yeah, and I
and
was wondering because you texted me and I was like, why are you awake?
yeah. But and let me tell you something. It feels so good to be back in Florida. I'm driving
Yeah.
around. I was working today. I was driving around. I went to the DMV to try to get my license. Try to get, and I got all the documentation, I got all the paperwork. I walk out. I hop out of the car. I'm about to walk into the building, and security guard, the guy that works there, goes, "You have an appointment?" I'm like, "No." And he literally just stood there laughing till I got off the lot. He was like, "Dude, you can't come in." Like, he was like, "Everyone here has appointments. We're backed up for weeks. Like, you can't just walk into the DMV and get your license. You have to make an appointment." I'm like, "Okay, fine." So
I
I
think you can order online also.
not if you're switching states.
Okay.
I'm not going. I'm going from a New York license to a Florida license now. So yeah. So
You used
so
to be able to just walk in.
well, even then, even if you did walk in, you still could for the most part. I heard that Florida's is always backed up. But even in New York, like that even if you're walking in, the odds are you could be sitting there for anywhere between 2 and 5 hours.
In
Like you
Jersey,
could.
I've never had a problem. When I was there, and granted this was more than 10 years ago, getting my first license. And it was always I knew it was always 45 minutes from the second you walked into the door to the second you walked out. It was
What?
somehow it was the most I never understood the jokes people made about the DMV. Because for some reason, the DMV on Kilmer Road, right next to Rutgers in New
Hmm.
Jersey, and it's called Piscataway, and it's actually in Piscataway, was efficient. I have
Right.
no idea why. They said if you have your 7 points or 6 points, whatever it is, the rule, you had to bring like mail, a credit card if you had one, a passport. You had to prove you were you.
Hmm.
And then literally you get the number. The most it ever took was 45.
Wow. Awesome.
I never understood. So like when you would see like The Simpsons or Family Guy or Friends or any of these shows, I never understood it because me, this little 16-year-old, went in, got my license, and walked out.
Yep. Hmm.
And then because I've never moved the state, I never had to go. I never had to
Yeah.
go in. I
Well,
knew.
I lived in two different states since I got my license, and I never needed to switch them. Although I have gotten pulled over, and the cops have asked me like, either what are you doing here? Like when I was in Seattle, someone hit my
Mm,
Prius, and they asked me for my license and my registration. I gave my license. Like, well, what are you
right.
doing here? I didn't want to say. The problem is that if you say that you live there and you don't change your license over, they could like impound your car and arrest you or something crazy like that. Um,
They give you a long time though
they
before
give
you
you
do that.
90
They give you like
days,
six. I thought it was 6 months.
maybe. But in Florida, yeah. So that happened in Seattle, and I just told the guy I was on a road trip, which isn't far from the truth because I did drive over, and it was like a month later. Um,
Right.
and then and then when I was in Florida, I got pulled over for going through a yellow light, but the officer said that there was like 5 accidents there throughout the week from people going through yellow lights, and they wanted to pull people over to just like to show oncoming traffic that people were getting pulled over, so people were nervous to go through the yellow lights. And he
Oh,
actually let
okay.
me he actually let me go, but he did look at my New York license like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm just visiting
Family.
my wife's family." And he's like, okay, because if you lived here for more than 90 days, like, you could impound your car. I'm like, okay, well, if you were
Wow.
yeah, I don't want to, I wasn't going to talk back to a cop, but,
If
you
you were
know,
eating a donut,
that's right, that's right. Um, so, but yeah, so, I mean,
but
this
this
is the first
story.
time that I'm trying to get my license switched, and it's only because I lost my other one. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
yesterday was just one of those days where
Wow.
you just kind of throw your hands up at the world and you throw your hands up and you just get, you just gotta assume that you can't have any hope. You can't hope that things are gonna work
Yeah,
out well. You have to just reset your expectations. Murphy's Law is what today's gonna be like, and that's the end of it.
dude, but it's so funny you say that because that's how also I've been living my life recently. I don't know what's going on. How, not in a bad way, but like things are going well. I'm just like I planned something. I think we spoke about this also. Like, but I told you today, Dafka today, like specifically today, I had a really good day. Don't know why.
Yep.
This was a good day, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like, someone asked me also, how are you so calm in all these situations and whatnot? And I can tell you the story about our flights and everything. Also, what happened yesterday. But like I just said, like I believe in something in the universe, and we'll call it God. And I'm just like, listen, I'm done. I don't need to plan anything. Like everything's been working well from my apartment that we almost lost to someone else who signed before us, and then they dropped out, and then we signed. So my experiment's not working, and then one day I, by accident, knock something over, and then the results are amazing. Like I just give up.
I think it's important, by the way, because I think it's really important to have in mind that we that there's like a nothing is really that big of a deal, and b there's only so much that we can control. Like when you have that in mind,
100%.
and you're just like, listen, like, okay, would it be really nice to have gone onto a 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock flight? Like, absolutely. You know, like, will I remember in a week whether I took a 6 o'clock flight or not? Like, absolutely not. What the,
No.
like, what do I
But
care?
this is a good memory now.
Well, I don't know if it's a good memory, but it's a memory. And it's
I mean, it
but
gives
like
you
either
content
way,
for the
like
podcast.
yeah, exactly. It's something. It's a story. I mean, it's the famous the famous Springsteen line. Someday we'll look back on this and it'll all seem funny. Like
Yeah.
we'll look back and we'll just say, yeah, I remember how miserable that was. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that was so funny. But like, it sucks. Like, but yeah, I think that to have the awareness and to have the presence, like the presence of mind, to just say this is not what everything is like forever, and this is
Yeah.
just not a big deal. That's the difference between what makes people crazy or not.
For sure, dude. I think learning that is a huge part of growing up. I think more and more and more and more. I see it in our lives as well, where it's just like I just like give it up. Like things are going good, things are going bad. You know what? I know that tomorrow's another day, and the sun literally the sun will come out tomorrow. Like
Ah,
don't know, like don't know anymore, dude. Like I'm just living.
yeah, dude.
Literally, and it's been so. And like I don't know, I really haven't complained. I mean, from on a personal level, I think I've complained to you about a lot recently, and it's really because I've been adapting that exact motto where it's like Murphy's Law can happen any moment, at any second, of any day.
Yeah,
I'm just like, listen, dude, let's just be dude about it. Let's hang out. Let's have fun.
that's right.
Let's just go about it, man.
That's
I
why
can
they
tell
call
you
you the
about the
dude man.
flights.
Tell me about the flights,
They don't
dude.
know. That was nuts. So I think, I mean, I live in Israel. I live in Rehovot, and we're coming in uh, for an event, for a family event.
Oh,
Uh,
come on. Oh, come on. Tell the crowd what they're here for, what they want to know.
we're going to keep that on the
Okay.
basis. We're coming in for an event. And, and basically, we booked Delta about 6 months ago because we're like, whatever. We were being a little, I don't know if we'll call it cheap. But we're like,
Why?
the
Delta's a
war
great
was going.
airline. Delta's
Delta's a
considered
wonderful.
top tier.
Delta's the only airline I have points on. I have a member of.
Okay.
I love Delta. I think Delta's great. I always fly them in America when
Okay.
I have to fly.
They're expensive, by the way. They're
Um,
more expensive than the other airlines,
they are, but they're one
but they're
of the
top
airlines
quality.
that exactly, but they're also trustable on times or trustworthy with time.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons also because I've always flown them.
They
I
don't
flew
nickel and
them
dime you
once.
either, which is
No,
a
you
big
know what
deal.
you're getting. It's literally you get what you get and you don't get upset, and I love that. I'm a very big believer in that.
Okay.
Um, so basically, there's another impending war. God forbid it actually happens, but with Lebanon.
Yeah.
So all of a
With
sudden
Lebanon,
yesterday
I
around
thought Iran.
let the proxy is Hezbollah.
Okay.
So basically, and then whatever. So basically, what happens is that Karen's friend sends her a message because she knew we were flying in Delta because she's flying the same time. But she's flying. Well, I don't know what airline she's flying on. But what all of a sudden she texts Karen a picture from Instagram. Delta is about to cancel all their flights until the 30th of September.
Oh man.
I look at my phone and yesterday was August 20th. I'm just like, oh shoot, our flights are September 15th.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, oh no. So I have connections in Israel. Karen has connections in El Al, and we're freaking out. We're like debating. We're looking at flights of like, because only Israeli airlines have the anti-missile lasers on them. So they're safe to fly because they deter missiles just like the Iron Dome. So we're looking at Israel to go to Budapest, from Budapest to London, from London to New York, and then all these things. All of a sudden, I
By the
wake
way, it could
up.
be it could be a great like vacation. Like seriously, like a honeymoon
I
worthy
would
vacation.
I would love to. Here's the issue. We don't have that much time. The issue is that Karen has a very because she is where she is in school, in her master's,
Hmm.
um, they're very strict. And because she just finished basically I'll go tangent a little bit, but it explains the story. She's in the Weitzman Institute. The Weitzman Institute works in this way for their masters, where they have basically residency, but their residency they call it rotations. Every 3 months you switch a lab, and after those 9 months you decide which lab you want to go to complete your master's. So she's in a lab that's really wonderful and great. They're studying what happens to your cells which is another conversation, what happens to your cells during a viral infection,
Cool.
and which is very cool.
I'd
Like
actually
what
love to hear more
happens
about that after, but yeah.
definitely after, because if you want to hear it from me, I have to read about it.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's cool stuff. It's how the organelles within the cell interact with each other during viral infections. It's very cool.
Okay.
Um, and basically, they're not so strict, but they give them only 2 weeks. And she's heard stories, quote unquote horror stories, that people have taken a month or this long off, and then they literally kick them out of the program. So she's a little bit stuck on time. So
Okay.
basically, what happens is we're freaking out. Like I said, I have connections in Israel. Karen has connections here. We're calling this one. We're calling that one. All of a sudden, I said, "Wait, it's not an Israeli airline. Let's call them." And I call them. I'm on the phone with them for two
With
hours.
Delta?
Delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 hours. And everything's all right, sir. Don't worry. And what happens after 2 hours? They put us on El Al flights for free.
By the way,
Gratis.
it's probably
Nothing.
way more expensive.
Right now, I checked. Right now, on the dates that we're flying, $5,400
No way.
together, not for one, for two. So
Right. So 25,
2250
$2,200 a piece to fly from Israel to America and back. No
direct
stops, right?
to
Yeah.
no stops
That's so
direct. I
crazy.
checked.
$2,200 is wild, dude.
If I'm not, I paid less for a business class ticket
Yeah.
on Lufthansa like 2, 3 years ago.
By the way, just sidetrack. I've heard that El Al's having their by far most profitable last couple of years, last year and a half, last year actually.
Well, when you're the only one in the game,
That's
I'll
right.
tell you what happened today. It, excuse me. Lal just because of this problem that just happened, because Delta is one of the biggest airlines
Yeah.
into Israel, and
Yeah.
Lal found the solution that they can still make more money. They are flying Israelis to 5 locations at a fixed price. It doesn't include bags, but if you want to jump on a plane to Dubai, Budapest, London, and two others for a fixed price, and they're not going to change it, nothing's going to change to get out of Israel,
No
let's say
way.
for vacation, whatever. Yes, I'm gonna call it a repatriation flight because that's what it reminds me of. It's like during Corona when America was sending flights everywhere and you jumped on it, you talked to the embassy and whatnot. I, this is what's happening. It's insane. And my dad sent me an article that like, and I'll say it the very Yiddish way, and then I'll explain it. That Elal are being chazers.
Yeah.
They're being pigs about it, and I don't think so. I don't
Um,
think so at all.
you think they're being smart?
I don't think it's a thing about smart either. It's supply and demand. It's basic economics, at least in my head. My dad's like, why? But why is it 2,000? Why is it 2,000? I'm like, if every Jew of the 15 million Jews on the planet wants to fly to Israel,
Yeah.
there aren't enough seats. Like you have to make it competitive that someone who can't afford to come to Israel, unfortunately, during this time, you're not. Like
Yeah.
I didn't come to Israel for years and years and years because I couldn't afford to come to Israel.
Right.
It's the reality of the flight. On top of that, you're paying for the upcharge of security. You're flying through, if not one of the most dangerous times to be in the air.
Yeah. Especially in the
Period.
Middle
There
East.
are in the Middle East, yeah, 100%. Listen, there's maneuvers that the pilots do now. You cannot get up for the first hour of the flight. Like there's crazy things that go on. What's the reason
Really?
behind that? I have no idea. Yeah, I
What are
don't
they
know why.
doing? You don't know? You should look
It's a
into that. It's really
security.
interesting.
It's interesting. I have no idea why. It's been a thing for years now. I have no idea why.
Right.
No
Right.
idea.
Right.
Because I
Well, I
remember I was
guess I
like,
guess it's I guess it's all the surrounding airspace that you initially go through once you first leave Israel.
no, no, because think about it.
What's the first bit of airspace when you leave?
Cyprus,
Cyprus. eh,
Cyprus, Greece, Italy. You fly over
oh,
the
oh yeah.
Alps.
Okay. Well,
I
those
I
guys are great.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen. You fly over Europe, you're fine. If you go the other way, there were years where El Al didn't fly over Saudi Arabia, and it took you,
Jordan.
I think, eight.
They didn't fly over Jordan.
No, Jordan, you can always fly over.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know what's right after Jordan. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Oh. Wait, in what
If I'm not,
direction? What
if
direction
you fly
is Iran relative
east,
to Israel? East.
if you are
Why would anyone
standing
go? Why would anyone go east, leaving?
China.
I know, but why would any American go east? Why would anyone going to Europe? They wouldn't, right?
No, 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 no one. You don't. If you, Europe's the other way. Europe's west.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're going to China, then you have to pass over Jordan and
China
Iran and everything.
or but you would go under. I think if my geography has gotten a lot better. If my geography serves me right, Jordan's pretty big. It either goes Afghanistan, Iran, or Iran, Afghanistan. I'm not 100% sure.
I know that Iran's a little further out because there's a lot of there's a lot of countries. I think there's like 5 or 6 countries between Israel and Iran, right?
This
They're like
isn't a
nice sized
Shabbos. This
countries.
isn't a Shabbos. We can check.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
hope I'm right, but not to sound the map of Middle East. I hope I'm right. If I was sort of no, I was wrong. No, I was right. What did I say? Afghanistan? It goes Jordan. Jordan hits Syria and Iraq and then Iran. Okay, so I got Afghanistan and Iraq.
Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran.
Iraq, Iran.
Okay,
Right.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's 3 or 4 and those are all big countries. Those are
So
like
what did you do?
geographically.
You have the Sinai Peninsula going under, so you have to fly until recently, until the Abraham Accords, to
Hmm.
get to China and China, Japan, India, Australia, all these places. You had to fly an extra, I think it was 5 hours just
Hmm.
to get around Saudi Arabia. And now, because Saudi Arabia is
And now
connected
Saudi
to
Arabia is saying that they want to shoot down any rockets that go over the airspace to Israel.
and sort of Jordan, which
Yeah.
made me feel a lot safer because
Which is
but
what I
I
was
think they
telling you,
also
dude. No one wants more wars. No one wants more wars. I don't even know really that Iran even wants more wars. You know, like
they came out yesterday, and sorry to interrupt you, but they came out yesterday saying we're going to make Israel wait. I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to say that,
yeah, of
then
course.
it either means that
Nah,
something's
then it
going
means they're
on
not doing it. It
internally,
means they're not doing
or
it.
you're not doing it.
Yeah, and
Exactly,
it's good. By the
because
way, it's so much better. It's so much better. I, I mean, listen. What do you think? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think that there are more hungry politicians and corporations behind the scene that are kind of either hoping or pushing for this, or you think this is just all natural and just kind of simmers up and or simmers down based on what the current geopolitical conversation is? Like, do you think that there's forces that are like that obvious? Because every war, there's always a lot of money for corporations to
oh,
make.
100%.
So do you think with this Iran Israel escalation or de-escalation, do you think that there are forces that are trying to push it towards it, other than just the hate that they have
Pure hatred.
that they have towards one another, or do you think that there's other people behind the scenes that are kind of pushing for it?
I think it's a mix of both. I think there's such ingrained hatred towards Israel, the Jews, and the West. How it was created,
I know, but
again, this could be like
Even in Israel's response, like, do you think there are people that are pushing Israel to get engaged in a war? You think that
Israel. Here's the thing: you have it's gonna sound a little bit classist if you want to say it. You have the educated people who understand that war is bad and war is always bad. I'll use the example of like World War One. I forget the book we read it in high school, where all these people were like, "Yeah, let's fight, let's do it. We need a." Or no, it was World War Two. They're like, in England, they're like, "Yeah, let's fight, let's do it, let's get Hitler, let's do it." And then 2 years into the war, they're like, "Oh shit, why did we do this? War is terrible." Like history repeats itself, and like unfortunately, like the average intelligence of people is low, which is terrible. Like
either that
just with
it's either intelligence, or I think that I also think that the amount of empathy that people have towards other people, and like the fact that like if people get hurt or die that aren't like their own or themselves, that they just don't
for
care.
sure.
I think that's a
That's
big
why
part of
like
it too.
100%. It's like tragedy brings everyone together. Like you can have when October 7th happened, who were the first people to run and go and give food to soldiers? The Haredi's.
Right. Which I mean,
Like
just in terms of the larger just scheme of the conversation, that historically, the Haredis are a group of ultra Orthodox Jews that don't
right.
typically see eye to eye with the Israeli government necessarily, especially with matters regarding the army. And there's always been a lot of tension
There's
between the
tension
ultra
now.
Orthodox group where they say we don't want to necessarily join the army and go to war. We want to study and learn. And they say, well, if you're living in our country and we're protecting you, then you guys should join also. And
It's more than that.
yeah, but I'm talking a very this is 101, you know.
Right. Got it.
Yeah, 101, 101, basically the point being that people that don't ordinarily have a lot of love for one another, and that when we're not under attack, they're attacking each other. You know, they're the first ones at the end of the day when push comes to shove to be there to help. Is what you're saying.
And that's the thing. Like it's also like it's like the family thing, right? Israel's always seen as one big family, at least according to the Jewish people all over the world. It's like, oh, my family, even though we're not related, he's a distant cousin, or he's not a cousin. I just call him my cousin. There's that very
Yeah,
much that attitude. But
yeah.
on the point of do I think, quote unquote, like an Illuminati, someone in the background profiting, or there's some
It doesn't have to be
things
Illuminati.
that
I mean, listen, it doesn't have to be Illuminati. It could be a weapons manufacturer. I mean, all it has to be is just one person that has a vested interest in the fact that a war happens or not. And again, I don't know. Obviously, and I was actually, I was thinking about this. I talked about this on my solo episode, which wasn't, I don't think, so great. But one of the things I was saying was that oh no, I'm about to lose my train of thought. I feel it happening. That
if you do, I have something to say.
okay, go for it, and I'll finish my thought. Yeah.
I want to connect it exactly to the podcast you sent me with AC Means, I think
I was
that's
going
her
to
name.
ask you about that a second later, but we'll go into more of it later. Tell me what you're going to connect it with, and then we'll talk about the actual podcast. Yeah.
Because as I think there's something similar, and we just don't know, or we do know it. We have the what was created by I think it was created by Truman or Ford. I don't know. It was created by Roosevelt. The what is it called? The military complex.
The
There's a
military
term that
industrial complex.
so exactly. So and I think then Ford said this is going to be the destruction of the world or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, and
Some
yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, please. Please.
So I think just like the podcast, and Casey Means, along with her brother, are very smart, educated people, and I was astonished by what they found within the industries of big pharma, big food, big whatever you want to
By the
call it,
way, just
around
for
what
the
we
record,
put.
yeah, this is the Tucker Carlson interview that happened a couple of days ago. It's what's the date today? 20 August
Today's the
20th,
21st,
21st. Yeah. And
I think,
she's a Stanford trained. She was going
physician.
to be a surgeon, and then he also, I think, I forgot. He's in politics in D.C., very high up there, and they're
He's
both
a Harvard Business School
yeah,
graduate, and she is a doctor. She was super specialty, and I think the term is, I know, subspecialty. So she was ear, nose, and throat, but she became an ear, nose, and throat surgeon.
right,
And with dealing in this, and this is sort of, and it's definitely connected, or the way I see it, is that they found within the complex of big pharma, and we already
right,
knew
because
big
there's
pharma was
all
a
these
problem.
complexes. That's what it is. It's you have these enormous organizations that are tasked to do enormous jobs and widespread responsibility, like food for the entire country, the entire world, or military
Yeah.
equipment for the entire world, the pharmaceuticals for the entire country or the entire world. And they're so important and they're so big that they become more powerful than most of our elected officials is really what the understanding is.
And who buys the most explosives in the world?
The most explosives? Walt Disney World with the
Exactly.
fireworks.
Yeah. Exactly. I always found that to be funny. I was like, maybe Israel's up there, maybe something. Then all of a sudden that comes out that Walt Disney World is the I don't know if it's the Disney
It's just
company
a
in
number
general.
two. Yeah, it's a number two. It's a number two buyer of fireworks in the country, except for the government on Fourth of July.
It's so funny. I
They're number
love that.
two,
I
though.
love that fun fact.
Yeah, with
That's my
no one
that's one of my
anywhere near them,
favorite
by the
fun
way. No
facts.
one's anywhere near them.
Yeah, it's easily like my favorite. Like that's my party. Like fun fact. Like what do you call that? Your cocktail party.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to call it. I
icebreaker.
love
Yeah.
that. But to go back, I I do think, again, I don't understand the military industrial complex. I don't. I don't necessarily know if I want to. I think it's interesting, but I'm
It's
in
scary as
science. I
hell,
think
dude. The
it's
problem
scary.
is, the problem is, and this is what actually I was going to say earlier. It's so hard to determine what information is true or not because they have so much power to repress information that,
Right.
and then there's so many conspiracies that are so crazy and they're so beyond that you don't know you don't know how
What's
far to let
fallacy?
yourself go. Yeah, you don't know, but because you know that they're not telling 100% the truth, and you know the conspiracies are not 100% right. So that means that out of two extremes, it's basically up to us to kind of just figure out what we believe is the middle ground and just hope that we're right. Like that's essentially all
The,
it is.
the scary thing is also is that both of them don't have to be wrong, and that's also scary.
Yes. Yikes.
Like,
That's the
like,
worst, by the way.
yeah, it's like you have a conspiracy theory that like, oh, let's play the game of Tony Stark, right? Tony Stark created all the bombs, and like he is actually the villain in the Marvel world, and then you have it like, oh, now he's Doctor like, I don't know, like sort of like to something like that where it's like you find out things where it's like you have these two just terrible things that are happening, or like America's funding all the wars because they want this to go crazy, and then you
That's
have
the
Russia.
military
Like
industrial.
both are true,
That's what the military industrial complex is
right?
America having to be a part of every war that happens, and we don't necessarily have to be.
That's a big thing on like, I don't, it's not the Federalist Papers. It's on the lines of like, it's
I,
like isolationism. Like,
yeah, and
are
I'm not
we
entirely isolationist. Are you? What do you think about it from a purely American standpoint? Do you think that
from a
Americans should
purely
be?
American standpoint, forgetting that we're Jewish and forgetting that we support Israel?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm an isolationist.
you are. So,
And
but
I
well,
believe
what? So what
I'm a very
excuse, if any, what excuse, if any, does America have to join a war? Meaning, let's say hypothetically, World War II is happening and America did not get attacked at any point, right? Nothing happened to any American.
no Pearl Harbor.
No Pearl Harbor, right?
Well, then we wouldn't have gone in anyways. Pearl Harbor was
You
the reason
think
why.
right. So the people that believe in the military industrial complex conspiracy would say that we were looking for an excuse in or Vietnam that and I believe and I don't want to talk without knowing 100%, but there was a big event that happened that apparently was staged by the CIA to get us involved in Vietnam. That a lot of innocent people got killed for. I don't remember exactly what it is, so
There was
I'm gonna
some
say
bombing or something. Like, I
yeah,
don't
but it was
know.
a huge bombing. It was a big deal. A lot of Americans died, and apparently it was staged by America to get America involved in the war.
Well,
You
back
know,
then, you know this. This is a big Charlie Manson thing. Back then, the CIA tried to topple everything. Like the
I
CIA was a
know.
nutso organization.
Well, yeah, and legally they're not supposed to operate on on American soil, which is the other thing that no one is ever held responsible for. I don't believe. Like, how can like if you have, let's say, like what we know is a fact as MK Ultra, right? And again,
Right.
this isn't like I'm really not. I really I try. I whatever I personally believe about the conspiracy theories or not, and most of them I don't.
Right.
I generally try to look at conspiracy theories as who's who's denying it and on what grounds they have to deny it. So, for example, I give a lot more weight to conspiracy theory about, let's say, and it's not even so much a conspiracy theory really anymore. I think that if anyone does any kind of homework, they see, like, let's say, like the whole COVID vaccine thing, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
that Michelle Obama is a dude, right? I give like if you tell me that what's the motivation for spreading one lie and what's the motivation for spreading the other lie, and you say, okay, well, one of them is people that have an opportunity. First of all, people
That was funny as hell.
what?
Michelle Obama has a dick.
Yeah, right. But like, what is there to gain out of that lie? And why would Barack Obama, who's a hero as far as most of Americans are concerned, why would he lie if he was gay, right? If he was the first black president and he was a Democrat and he was appealing to a particular audience, and that particular audience would probably love and by the way, I think it would be definitely cool to have to say that America is the first country to have a black gay president. Like there's a lot of, especially if you're going to go according to the progressive values, there's a lot of weight to be thrown behind that. So what's the point of denying it for 10 years or 20 years? Like what's the point in, like, what do you have to gain by lying? As opposed to COVID vaccines, what you have to gain by lying? You gain control over a lot of people, which is something that we know that the government likes to try to do, or we know that the
Right.
corporations try to do. You gain a lot of money, which you know a lot of people try to do, and we know that a lot of corporations like to do. We know that people have been, and then is there a history of similar behavior? There aren't a lot of
Where's
similar behaviors.
Fauci? Where's
Yeah,
Fauci been in the last 6 months in the news? He hasn't.
for, yeah, and forget about Fauci. Like you have a lot of you have the AIDS epidemic, which was handled incredibly poorly. You have the
For
OxyContin
sure.
epidemic, which was handled poorly. You have all these histories of all these of all these times that we've screwed up. So when your conspiracy theory, when your quote unquote conspiracy is in line with historical patterns and in line with something that is a tangible goal that anyone would try to achieve, which is money, power over people, billions, trillions of dollars, right? All of a sudden, that's not such a crazy conspiracy because it's grounded in human nature and it's grounded in what something that people are interested in. Whereas Michelle Obama being a dude, what's that grounded in? Why would anyone lie about that? What precedent is there for anything like this? Why would anyone even think that to begin with? Like who would ever think that? Like what's there to gain? Like who
Nothing. There's
cares?
nothing
I
to
mean,
gain but a headline.
and like that's the same thing right now with Kamala Harris's VP, Tim Walz, I think is his name. Like from Minnesota. Everyone's calling like
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter. Everyone's calling him gay. Why would you be closeted as a Democrat of a Democratic state, like a liberal state in 2024?
Well,
What are you
you
gaining
have
by
Pete
hiding?
Buttigieg, who was the senator from I think Ohio, and he's out and gay and proud and everything, and he ran for president in 2020 or whatever year it was, and
Yeah,
he was now whatever it's called in America. He was in transportation, and that doesn't mean just transportation. That's infrastructure and a lot of things. And he's openly gay. To answer you to not answer, but to make an assumption or a hypothesis on what you said is it's just why because adding another thing to the list might not allow them to be elected. Adding that you're black and gay might not allow you to be elected
no,
because
but
America
that's but
votes on
that's
feelings rather than facts.
yeah, yes, you're right. But the same people that the same people that care so much to have a black president that also care to have a gay president, and at the
That
same
might not
time,
be true. I don't know if
you
I
don't think
agree
it's
with
true?
that. I don't know because think about let's think about the black people in Newark, right? Who are looking for wow, finally one of our own. Even though I don't. Something that Raven Simone said on an interview is like, I don't consider myself to be an African American. I'm American. I happen to be an African as well. Like
Right.
I don't love that. Like I don't like if the president
Sure.
happened to be Jewish, like I don't always consider myself an American. It didn't make a difference. I'm an American. The point being is that I don't fully think that someone who comes from a certain area, they would also be like, he's black and he's gay. No, they might not like that he's gay. They like that he's black,
So you're saying that there
you
is
know,
that there would be a reason to lie.
100%.
Okay, I hear that. I
Not to
mean,
lie, just not to say anything. I don't
I
think
know, but
I
meaning
don't
for the conspiracy theory to be valid,
yeah.
there would be motivation. More?
Yes, 100%. I think there's motivation with everything. And to go back to what we were saying, do I believe that there's some hands forcing all these things? 100%. But I think it's good and bad. I think do I think it's Bill Gates running the show with his Alex Jones type of story where they all go into the woods where they pray to an owl? I don't know. Maybe everything's possible. I don't
Right.
really care. But if it's
Right. Right.
working and we go through these years like World War, we went through a depression. We went to Nazi Germany, and the world had years of prosperity, and we had built. Like, it comes and goes in waves. If you're telling me that, let's say there's some force, and I'm going to call it the Illuminati for lack of a better term or lack of a better
Well, like we call it the
name of
deep
an
state.
or
The deep state is what people call it.
fine. So let's call it the deep state. If there is a deep state, and this is what they're planning, and they're not planning to annihilate everyone and kill everyone and end the nuclear war, I don't really know. Unfortunately, so many people are going to die because of it. But the reality is, at the end of the day, like there are times of war and there are times of peace. Do I want Israel to sustain itself and be able to not be in wars? 100%. But the powers are above my head, above everyone's head, and I'm just a regular person, just as you are. So do I believe that there is a deep state? 100%. Do I believe that they
That's the
do
other
as
problem that
much
I
as?
think people have too, by the way, is the feeling of helplessness. Like
Yeah.
especially by the way, and I think it's a really dangerous thing that I think I think that it's a huge problem that a lot of people and probably younger people, I would say, because younger people feel more strongly that they could like change the world, or they want the world to be changed. A lot of people are feeling overwhelmed when they hear conspiracy theories like these. And again, it could, the extent I'm the word conspiracy theory, the word conspiracy theory, to me, I think it's a very gray word that again
Mhm.
has different levels of depth and value based on what the theory
Right.
is. But even so, right? Let's say you're, and I have a good friend Pacey. I want to record with soon. He loves conspiracy theories,
Huh.
and like I sat down with him Friday night. He came over for a meal, and I was like, dude, I was like, you seem like a conspiracy theory guy. We had he basically came over with a bottle of Glenfiddich, and was like, let's have a good time, right? So
Love me a good bottle of Glenfiddich.
I was like, dude, you strike me as a conspiracy theory guy. And his response was, tell me what your favorite conspiracy theory is. Which means that he
Love
feels
that.
comfortable enough being versed in all the conspiracy theories that whatever I bring up, he feels confident. He's like, and then I said, I don't know, like the COVID vaccines. And he was like, dude, I thought you were gonna say the moon is made out of cheese or something like that. Like and I was like I was like, dude, I love you, man, but like so obviously the words have different weight, but I think I think a huge source of depression and anxiety that a lot of people have, especially younger people have now, is the overwhelming feeling of what can you do? Like helplessness, that you're just one person. Like again, even myself, by the way, I experienced this when do you remember when Iran shot all those missiles towards Israel? And I actually I was freaking out. I found out about it Saturday night, and I was freaking out about it because what I said was that this is leading to World War III. I was really afraid that this was World War III because I thought that Russia, China, and Iran, and whatever other one of any other of their allies, were basically testing the water with the Russian-Ukraine war and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and they felt comfortable enough to go ahead and shoot rockets at Israel, meaning that they're not afraid of a world war. And I really thought it was going to be a world war, and that's the last thing that I want for anyone. I don't want nuclear. I'm terrified of a nuclear war. I'm terrified of a world war.
But this is the intelligence, right? This is the intelligence level of a person who is level-headed and understand that war is always bad.
I understand, but I think a lot of people don't want war, and a lot of people don't want nuclear war, especially. And I think, and so when something like this happens, right, and people feel like so much that's going, depression and anxiety it probably rise to the highest levels when you feel like life and the decisions that affect your life are out of your hands entirely.
Yeah.
People that are entirely in control of their lives don't feel depressed or anxious for the most part. I,
You
I don't I
feel
don't think.
but this is also let me bring it down to a very, very, very small level. But my stomach pains. A
Yeah.
lot of my anxiety goes to my stomach, and when I have those stomach pains, it's usually I'm in a situation where I can't control things, and my
Yes.
anxiety, like
Yes.
people have headaches. Like Karen gets headaches when she's anxious.
Yeah.
Like my sister used to get lumps in her throat when she was under stress.
But but
Sometimes I
but but
get
not under stress. Under stress about that the future is uncertain and it's out of your
exactly,
control. That decisions are being made for you that you didn't sign up for, and you have to live with the consequences.
yeah,
That to human beings is one of the worst things that could ever happen to you.
100%. And that's exactly what happens with the anxiety that I have is that I'm just like, I am not in control. I'm a control freak when it comes down to things. I hate not having control of XYZ situation.
By the way,
Listen, I'm fine going.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you're
Sorry.
fine.
Like going into an exam that I studied for, great. I have no anxiety. I know exactly what I'm doing. I hate studying, I have to admit, even though yes, I'm in academia and I'm getting a PhD. I don't enjoy studying. You know?
Yeah.
I enjoy being in a lab. I enjoy working on things. I enjoy doing things. But the second I get anxiety, it's like, oh crap, I'm not ready for a meeting with my professor, with my advisor. I'm not ready for this meeting with Tenuva, which is one of the biggest milk conglomerates in Israel. You know, I'm not ready to hand in this grant and it's due tomorrow. Like things that are not necessarily are and like you can think about it. Like when I get into a car and I'm not driving, I have the most anxiety ever.
By the way, so do I. I hate having someone else drive a car while I'm in the car. And
Yep.
I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that I trust when I say trust, it's not that I won't get in the car with them. It's that I feel at ease while they're driving. I can
Right.
count on one hand. It's not my mom. It's not my dad. It's not my siblings. It's not,
And it's for sure not your bad.
I mean, I can count on one hand. It's not, and it's just, and the feeling of your life being out of your control. By the way, maybe that might be why I don't like roller coasters or like rides like that. And like, that's why I never
That's
minded.
funny.
That's probably why I never minded water slides,
Water
especially
rights.
body slides, because like you feel while you're on a water slide, like
Yeah.
if you need it, like you're in control. And I also loved alpine slides. You know what those are?
Yes. I
Those are
love
great.
alpine slides.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
that's because you could
love
slow
roller
down. You could
coasters.
stop on an alpine slide if you want. Like you don't even have to
But
move forward.
but I think the thing for roller coasters is exactly that, but it's different for me because I know when it stops. I know when you usually know when it starts and you know when it ends. So for me,
Yeah,
there's zero anxiety. So like I decided to go on the ride. I know that like let's call it this like the Haunted Mansion. It's not a roller coaster, but you know that you have roughly 11 or I know exactly the number. Splash Mountain before they changed it is exactly 11 minutes and 27 seconds. I know for 11 minutes and 27 seconds, if there's no problem with the ride, I am in and out after waiting 3 hours to get on the ride. But
right.
I am in and out of Splash Mountain, relatively wet, moving on to Big Thunder Mountain. You know what
And
I
you
mean?
also know what it is that you're dealing with. I mean,
Exactly.
the anxiety of your first time doing Splash Mountain, and the anxiety that you experience the third time or fifth time that you do it, or even the second time, is totally
I
different
love it
because you know because you get to know what to expect. The worst part about
for sure.
and it's actually funny because if I'll go back to Disney after not having been there for a little while, and I do a ride that I've done a bunch, but I haven't done in a long time, and I know, and then I'm walking through the line, and it says, "Warning, this ride is not meant for people that have like, like X, Y, and Z
Motion
condition
sickness.
and motion sickness, and this, it's dark and twists and turns." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, can I handle this?" You know? And then I get off of
Yeah.
it, and then I'll do it again the second time because I already know what to expect. And
Yeah.
that anxiety dissipates. So full circle, I think that the biggest problem that people have, I think the damaging thing the worst thing that people experience now, especially young people, is that it's that the future seems, or that the present even seems so bleak, with so little that's in our control, that we don't feel like we have any kind of license over our own lives and the outcome of the decisions that we make and the actions
But this is
engage with.
also, I completely agree. But this is why I very much like, I couldn't stop listening to the Ari Shafir podcast. Not podcast, he was on Tucker Carlson as well.
Yeah,
You sent me two podcasts, and both were just stellar.
yeah.
Ari Shafir threw away his cell phone for like 6 months or however long it was and went to Thailand, went to all these places. And like, I do think that it's the same thing. Again, the same thing that happened with the Casey memes and her brother. I don't know if his name is Casey and her name is something else. But they have the
No,
same
I
K
think
or
she's
C name
Casey and he's something else with the K. Yeah,
with a K or a C or whatever it is. Like
yeah.
the reality is not the reality. The question I have is what did it feel like in 1939 or 1942 when Pearl Harbor happened on your birthday.
Right.
And like the question is like what really happened? Like was there the same anxiety or it was like an ocean away? Is it because right now like Israel has Mossad agents in Iran and we do know things and we have Jordan like the question is like is
So
there
what the
such
difference is? I'll tell you what I really believe the difference would be. I think that first of all, America hasn't won a war since World War II. That's number one, which I
right
don't think people really realize. Like we really like you can't say that any of the wars that we engaged in, that we walked away from. that America really won any of them. You know,
All Sleepy Joe's fault.
no, but even Vietnam, even George Bush's wars,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like we didn't win them. You didn't walk away being like, yes, we were successful at what we were trying to accomplish, and we did what we had to do. But imagine this, right? Imagine it's 1942 or whatever year it is that that Pearl Harbor happens, and you're an American, and and by the way, I mean, it could just be like the dad in me now, and like the fact that like, I'm getting older and like I'm raising a family in America, but like I
Hmm.
feel more patriotic than I ever thought that I would about this country. Like I can't even begin to I get like I cry from like I get emotional from from patriotic propaganda, and I know
Me
it's
too.
propaganda. I'm like this, but like I was like, but this is the place where I'm from, and this is the place where I'm raising a family, and this is the place where like my kids will grow up, and this is the place where like we're gonna
Yeah.
be, and this gave me an opportunity, and I feel like it's part of who I am. I really do. I really, really, really do. And now imagine if you have that feeling, and I think the feelings were even more strong, in the 40s or 50s or even the 70s. Maybe not the 70s because of the whole whatever, but let's say 40s and 50s. And now Pearl Harbor happens. Now
Right.
you don't feel like we got attacked, right? You don't feel like the outcome is outside of your control. Now the outcome is in your control. You have a responsibility, you have a duty. My duty is to help protect my country in some kind of way, help fight for my country in some kind of way. And
Right.
if it's part of a world war, it's still protecting my decision to join the draft, my decision to contribute to America in whatever way, shape, or form is me making the active choice to help protect my future and my family's future in the future, and my family's future in 10 years or 20 years or 100 years from now. And so you don't feel that same sense of your life being out of your control when you're joining up to help, because you feel like like your decision is having a direct like it's your decision to make, and it's having an impact on your world for all time to come. It doesn't feel the same. It would not feel the same way if Americans got drafted to go to Ukraine tomorrow,
Right.
because this isn't an American war. It's not and if Americans got drafted even to go, or even if Americans got sent to go to Israel, right? I mean, let's again put aside our Judaism for a minute. Put aside our our love and our love for and our pride in the state of Israel, and the country and what it represents to us and what it means, and for thousands of years trying to get back. Put that all aside from an American speaking. America, Israel and Hamas, Israel and Hezbollah, Israel and Iran does not have anything to do with with Steve Smith living in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And Steve Smith living in Wisconsin doesn't want his life and his family's life and to potentially die or get PTSD or to experience all the tragedies and horrors of war for no reason, because it's nothing to do with his life, right?
Uh-huh.
And
There's
so
stories like that. For
yeah.
the Revolutionary War, you have accounts of the British soldiers who were
Mhm.
shipped over from London or from wherever, from the UK. They just didn't have it in them because they said, "What am I fighting for? I'm not from here." They didn't care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons, even though the Revolutionary War was a few years long, it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why that the historians claim that we won, that America won the war. They were fighting on their land for their people, for their freedom.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And by the way, that goes all the way with what I've been saying. What I really believe and I've been saying is that everyone only has so much energy to expend on something that they don't really believe is valuable.
Right.
And like, if you don't, like, you can only go X amount of time. I only have X amount of tolerance to engage in activities that I am not 100% behind. I'm
Right.
100% behind this podcast. I'm 100% behind my family. I'm 100% behind, being a good dad and being a good husband and being a good community member and being a valuable member of society. And
Right.
so my passion for that, even when I'm physically tired or mentally tired, my passion is not extinguished, right?
Right.
But
100%.
my my love for sales and medical equipment is not the same thing. and so I have much more limited resources available to sell medical equipment than I do to teach, or than I do
Right.
to, to be creative in some shape or form,
Right.
or to have a podcast. So if you're defending your land, and you're defending your home, you're defending your country, the amount of effort that you're going to show, it's the whole home crowd environment, like this is the home crowd, and this is our place. We're going to defend it.
That's what makes me
Um,
really confused about the people who protest. And it doesn't necessarily mean the protesters that are doing the Israel-Palestine stuff. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference who. But they go out with flags and they burn the American flag. And I'm just like,
that
you are
kills me, dude.
you are allowed to do that because you're in America. Like that's what
By the
confuses.
way, can we agree that if you burn the American flag, you should be arrested and put in
I
prison?
I think you should be
I don't
kicked
know
out
for
of the
how long.
country.
I don't know for how long, but I think that it should be that any single person that burns an American flag, especially, by the way, especially in public. Forget about like your
Yeah.
backyard and like your neighbor sees you, but you're in front of the Capitol, or you're like in Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, or
Doesn't
even
matter.
even
You can be
Florida.
in
Doesn't make a difference where you are.
bumblefuck. No.
You're in
You can be
public. Yeah,
bumblefuck
you're in
anywhere.
public. You're on Main Street. You're on Main Street anywhere USA,
Mhm.
and you burn an American flag, you get prison time.
I
And
agree.
like this, because this is your home. Like
But
you're
it,
you're
but
you're
it's
you're
it's so
representing.
funny. It's so funny the logic, and yes, like you're representing the flag, you're representing the country. Like it's so funny how they run from these countries. And I'm not saying immigrants, I'm not saying anyone. I'm saying anyone who
Yeah,
burns the flag. It could be someone who was born in America, not born in America. I don't care who you are. It's just funny because I myself will never burn a country's flag. Period. Doesn't matter what country it is.
any country,
Any
really.
country. No, what's the point? It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of
Well, it's symbolic, of
material.
course.
Yeah, symbolism, big deal. Throw it. We jump in a lake. You know what I mean? Like, but the thing is that like the symbolism, yes, in that sense, like the action behind the meaning behind it means more to me. You ran, let's say, from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, anywhere that was
Venezuela.
Venezuela, and then all of a sudden, because now you have a reason, and now you're anti-establishment, and you've decided all of a sudden I'm going to burn the American flag because oh, it's terrible. The establishment is terrible. Government is terrible. You were allowed into this country, and based on your First Amendment right, you are able to do so. Be thankful that you're not beheaded by the Taliban or by ISIS or by anyone,
Right.
because if you did that in Iran, look at what's happening to
So
women in
how, so what
Iran.
so what percent so I want to here's what I want to do. Here's what I hope to try and do. Here's what I want to do. I think that in the spirit of the whole notion of what I'm trying to accomplish with the podcast, what percent of people do you think are just going along? Let's say that's the most vehement or vicious kind of perspective that you can have towards the
Mhm.
towards whatever flag you're burning, right?
Right.
What percent of people can we look charitably upon and say they're following a trend, they don't know better, and kind of like what I don't know if you finished the Ari Shafir episode, but like what they said, like what he said was like he likes to play this game where like defend like when you hear a story about someone, like someone doing something, act as if they play as if they're your best friend, and defend and try to defend their action, understand where they might be coming from,
Hmm.
right? I do think that there is a line to that behavior. Just like if you were to tell me about myself or my wife, or any of my best friends, my family, like if you were to say, like at a certain, I think there is a line where behavior is inexcusable, but I think that line is pretty hard to get to, and I think that a lot of times if we had the context of what these people are and where they're coming from, we would look at it a little differently, right?
Right.
What percent of people do you think are just kind of going along with, like, let's say we could look charitably at them and say they don't really realize the extent of what they're doing. That they're following a trend, that they're just going along with whatever's happening around them, or they're being taught or taught that this is a good thing to do, or whatever it is. What do you think that most of these people have the worst intentions? Do you think these people are just almost like, sheep just being herded around to follow certain ideas?
You mean the whole DNC?
I don't know about the whole DNC.
No, I'm kidding. I'm
Listen,
kidding. I'm kidding.
yeah.
I'm
By
kidding.
the way, and it's interesting. I find this about the right too, though, that anyone that's all in tends to really be not really like not like they don't really see, I have yet to experience someone that's all in one way or another that really has a strong opinion and perspective of their own that's like rooted in something intelligent and something thought out and thoughtful,
I
you know.
just, yeah, I think it
Like most
comes,
people in the DNC at this point that would have been in the DNC 10 years ago or 15 years ago are probably a little bit more concerned just about what's going on around them than they are still all in. Like if you're like again, I would probably be a liberal, you know, 30 years ago. I really would be, you know,
I mean,
and
like most Jews.
well, not even Jews. Like I really do think that I really like the whole philosophy of the beatnik, you know, culture and the whole and like letting people do whatever they want and and individuality is a good thing and being yourself is not a threat just because it's different. It's just different. And sometimes
Yeah,
it is a threat, but a lot of times it's just different. And to be cool with that, you know,
for sure.
you know, like but most people that are like that I think are still unnerved by on the left and the right are still unnerved by like how blind a lot of people you know are or you know behave.
Yeah, I mean, it comes in line with I'll call it the COVID generation, right? Everyone became a doctor. Everyone thinks they know everything. You can Google
Hmm.
everything, and Google's a good tool. I think one time we spoke on the podcast about this where people send me articles and they're like, "Oh, but here's proof." And I'm like, "You didn't read the article. The article has a title that fits what you want to say, but but if you look at the research that was actually done, it's completely opposite of what you need or want." So it's just like all these things are very funny, and then you keep on finding these things. So it's like sort of to talk about, yes, are those people who are burning the flags, are they just following a trend? Yeah, people, but the idea is also that people like to be sheep. People like to be told what to do. People enjoy
You
feeling like
think so?
100%,
Do
dude,
you
Nazi Germany.
do you think it's because it's easy, or do you think it's because they actually like it? Like, do you think that it's just like that
People
people are
don't
lazy? Do
like
you think people are
making
lazy?
decisions. 100%, dude. People don't like making decisions. There are days, I guarantee you, that you've had days, not guarantee you, you can tell me, there are days where you go to Rachel, I'm done making decisions for the day, you pick everything. I'm done.
Yeah,
People don't
yeah.
want to do like 100%. I do that to Karen sometimes also. I say, I've made enough decisions for today. And it's not angry at her, God forbid. It's just like I had to decide on a big decision on a flight, and then I had to do a big decision in research, big decision at work. It goes on and on and on. And like, this is the thing, like, and something that I learned from Mark Zuckerberg is something that he just doesn't change his clothes. Like, he wears the same t-shirt, the same this, like, obviously a different one,
Yeah,
but like,
it's not dirty, right?
right. It's choice exhaustion, and people hate that, and that's what happens. Also, like do you find yourself going to supermarkets because you have so much choice? You're just like, there's nothing to buy.
Yeah. Well,
So
by the way, that's been the biggest problem with a lot of my life. Most of my life, for example, like career-wise, a lot of people choose a place to live based on where their job is.
right,
But I work remote, so I can live anywhere. You
it's
know,
great.
most people choose, yeah, exactly. People choose, you know, for example, who they want to be with, their friends, based on like the circle they're in. I have a
That's right.
lot of different circles, you know, and you know, and so the act of the question, where do you want to live? Is exhausting because I could live anywhere and I could you know, and I could do and like and so what makes one place better than the next? Every place is up and downs, and then all of a sudden it's overwhelming. And I'd rather not make a decision and just be where I am than make another choice. You know?
Choice
Yeah, I hear it. It's
exhaustion is
exhausting.
is real, and this is why. And it's not only that. And like, you go into primal psychology, and I think I mentioned Yuval Harari goes into this. Also, if you look at what he says is that primalism came to quote unquote a pause or a stop. We're still primal in essence, but he said once communities started to be built, it was you were primal against other people. You were primal against, but to each other, you were building
Yeah, which
community.
is terrible.
Right,
That's yeah. Jonathan Sachs talks about that too. Rip. But he says that we look when we have, it's called like he calls it the other complex. Like when you could look at someone else, like
Right.
us versus them, or they're someone, it's the other, then you dehumanize them before you even start. That you give yourself the license or the permission to do something because they're not one of you. They're not part of
A
you.
hundred
And you
percent.
look at your group like part of you. And
Right?
part of the problem is, yeah. And I was actually, and that I was talking to the guy in the airport behind me. I was telling him that yesterday too. I was like, it used to, I said, dude, I am so sorry, man. I was like, I know I can't help you. You can go ahead of me if you want. I was like, we I said we forgot how to look at each other like we're people, and like we're just other people. We look at each other like we look at life like it's me versus everyone. Everyone's a threat.
We're
And we're
regressing.
talking about it for a little bit. Yeah, because everyone is outside of us and everyone is a threat and everyone is dangerous and everyone is different and everyone could be like the worst thing ever. And there's so much divisiveness that gives us permission and freedom to treat people in the worst ways, and it's so sad. But that's what I'm trying to fix, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would love. That's what I would love to, attempt to accomplish with the podcast is, what do we have in common? What do we
Right.
talk about?
Yeah, I think
What can
I,
we do?
I think you're accomplishing that. I think also that
Not yet.
we're
With all
working
10
on it.
listeners.
We're getting 10. I went up to 10. That's good. It was five last
Yeah,
week. Um,
yeah,
but I think that's also one of the reasons why we enjoy Disney so much. And I think it's sort of like the
yeah.
reason of
Dude, when you're in
storytelling.
Disney World, everyone's part of a family together
Yeah,
there.
and it's like you enjoy it, and that's why like I don't fully understand why like, people shit on Disney adults or like all these things because again, like these things and like let's forget about the parks for a reason for a minute. I mean, it's the storytelling. It's like Encanto wasn't the best movie, but now I'm just like, this is inclusive. I get to understand culture. They bring in aspects of like the clothing and what they wear and all these things. Moana, I didn't know anything about Polynesia, and they do all these tattoos, and then I understood, and then I looked into the New Zealand rugby team and all these things. Like it just opens you up to come together, and I think that's really yes, Disney has an agenda and all these things, but I really do think like the people that come
Yeah,
together are really ones that are looking for it. You have these people that are just set up to hate. And to go back
yeah,
to 2 questions ago, that's what I really think is happening with Iran and Israel and all these things. Like, it's funny because people like Rudy Rockman, who is, I suggest that all of your 10 listeners look up if they haven't already. He's a YouTuber, he's Israeli, he's actually a friend of a friend. He has, I think, 150,000 followers, and he goes and just sits in like Central Park. He's Israeli, he's French, he did the army, and he's like, and he walks up to these people, walk up to him because he has that sign like Steve Crowder has, like, convince me I'm wrong, or like what he writes is like,
yeah,
I was in Gaza 2 weeks ago, ask me anything. And he says,
yeah.
I'm a soldier. I have never killed a Palestinian in my life. I see you, a Palestinian, as my cousin. Let's make peace. I don't need this industrial military complex to this connection that we have. You know, you eat hummus, I eat hummus. You call it something else. I like. He doesn't. I'm simplifying it to such a
No, of
degree.
course, of course. But just to make the point, which is understood.
Yeah,
The other thing that's also important, by the way, I think, is just the simple, and this is such an art, and it's such an important art, and it's such a great art. The importance of asking people questions that you're
yeah,
talking to. Where I've noticed this actually. I started to notice this when I was dating and single and spending a lot of time in the city, and I was trying to, I was trying to pretty much get on as many dates as I could get on, and I was talking to all these girls, and every time I talk, and I figured out, and I don't know, I mean, I guess it was kind of part of who I am. I kind of figured out in college too. That's where I started, but all I had to do was be like, oh, nice to meet you. Where are you from? New Jersey. Oh, did you like growing up in New Jersey? How many times does someone get that question asked to them in their lives? Oh, what are you studying? I'm studying poli-sci. I'm studying, engineering. Oh, what does that entail? Do you like those classes? Are they really hard? How do you like that? And all you got to do, like the most basic, stupid questions in the entire world, shows that you care about what they have to say,
right.
allows them to open themselves up to you. You establish a relationship, a connection, and then most of the people that I got in touch, and it's so funny because if because by like the generic yardsticks that are set by social media today, you talk about stupid, and they are stupid because they're not overarching themes that are relevant to our everyday lives. You talk about, you know, these cultural issues that like left versus right is constantly arguing about. Most of my close friends in college, I don't think I saw eye to eye with them on a lot of these issues. I mean, I was blown away. It was so funny because I mean, I was friends. I had let's say 100 or 150 people that I was at least on friendly terms with, that if I was walking through campus, I would say, hey, I'd give them a head nod, what's going on, good to see you, where you're heading, whatever it is, move on. Like, okay, we weren't best friends. I wouldn't sit down with them and have a half an hour conversation,
Right.
but like we were on really good terms. And whenever we saw each other, like it would almost be like, that relief if you walk into a room and there's five people you don't know and one person you do. And like it's someone that you
100%.
could that you have goodwill towards, so like you immediately gravitate towards them. I had that with a lot of people there. And and then and I realized, and then during the 2016 election when I was a junior, um was the first time that I realized, it came up passively in conversation. Oh, I'm voting for Hillary. Oh, I'm voting for Trump. Oh, I'm voting for Bernie. Oh, I'm voting for whoever. And and then you moved on. And like I think, and then my response was, when someone tell me I'm voting for Trump, I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. And then I'm voting for Hillary. And like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, cool. And that was the end of it, And like,
Right.
but we had we because we had established a relationship that was that was contingent on actually getting to know who the person was. It didn't even matter after that. It really, really, really didn't.
I have a funny story
Um,
about that, where
Go
it
ahead.
was back in 2016 when the election was, and for some reason, I had to take like one final history class, like to graduate, and like I handed in my paper or like a few papers, and like we're going through the semester, and all of a sudden, like I don't know why, but the professor pinned me as a Trump supporter, and I had no idea. I never spoke in class, never spoke. And then I spoke to him one day, and he's like, "Of course you're supporting Trump." And I said, "No, I'm supporting Hillary because I was voting for Trump. What's your business?" I also wanted a good
Right.
grade. Give me a B. I
Yeah.
deserve a B. I was there every day. People didn't show up to class.
You
Give me
think
a
he gave you a
B.
bad grade because you knew that?
Yeah, I think. Listen, I can't prove it, but like that is the only interaction I had with him. And my other grades were A, final exam B. You gotta be.
Right.
So
When I was in college, I had a professor actually at 2016 I did vote for Trump. I did not vote in 2020. And in 2016 I'm in this class and there's this professor Joe Wild who I'm still close with. Actually, when I went to Binghamton for the weekend like a month ago, he and I met up for coffee. We hung out for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it is, 7, 8 years after I graduated. We were very close, and I took a bunch of classes with him. And he and you could tell, and unfortunately, and I kind of understand it a little bit more because like as you kind of get swept up in it, like politics starts to feel like it's the only thing that matters in people's lives. I really do understand that, and I understand why people feel so urgent and strongly and passionate about it. So every single class in his class, it was twice a week, hour and a half. Um, the entire class was him crapping on Trump, right? And
right.
saying how this is the worst thing. And it's really, by the way, I mean, whatever. It's not great to constantly do that. Um, which leads to him getting shot, which is pretty crazy. Which is also
Right.
crazy how little anyone cares about it like a week later, but whatever. Like at the time, it was like, oh,
Just the
that's not
media
good, and then
circle.
after 3 days, it's over, right?
Yeah.
So but anyway, so I went up to him after like halfway through the semester, and I was like, Joe, and I mean, he and I have already taken 3 or 4 classes together throughout the year and a half, and he and I were we're close. We hung out in office hours. I know about his kids, and we'd write poems together, and I TA'd for him one class. And I was like, Joe, I'm like, I just want you to know, I was like, I don't want to give you a hard time, and I'm not trying to fight, I don't want to argue with you. I was like, but I'm in your class, and you're shitting on Trump all day, and you're shitting on how evil his supporters must be. I'm like, Joe, I'm voting for him. Like I like him. I'm voting for him. And I was like, and I just want you to know that it's really that just listening to you berate him and berate, anyone that's voting for him and his supporters and me, is real. It's really been tough. And like his head almost exploded because
Wow.
on one hand, he hated Trump more than anything. On the other hand, he really, really liked me, and he does preach love and he does preach, charitable behavior and perspective on other people. And to his credit, for the rest of the semester, like he'd make a point, he'd go on a tangent, he'd be like, that's why we have shitheads like Trump running for president. Then he'd like look at me, he'd go like, and Hillary and Bernie, screw them too. And I'm like, okay, like I'm like, what
I
are you
love
going
that.
for over here?
I love that.
But he was great. He also told me, by the way, just I thought you would find this very funny when I was having lunch, when I was having coffee with him, because he loves Jews. He loves Jews, and he's an Irish Catholic,
Love
hardcore
it.
Irish Catholic. He writes like Irish poetry, and he plays all the classics, on piano and guitar, and he's a
Finnegan's
very
Wake.
faithful Christian. That's right. And and he was telling me that, it's that this whole Israel Palestine conflict is very difficult for him. He's like, and so he said that in one of his classes, he was like, there's a kid that was like, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. And then my professor looks at me and goes, anti-Zionist? He goes, well, anti what kind of Zionist? And he was like, and the kid is like, what do you mean? He goes, well, the Zionist party has, has really, has probably like, a dozen or 2 dozen different like historical stances and perspectives and takes, since it was established in 48. So I'm just curious if you feel really upset, if you really feel like you hate Zionism, like which leader do you not like? Which Zionist perspective really, upsets you? I just want to know.
Right.
And the kid's like, I don't know. And he was like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't feel so strongly about something that you don't know a lot about, and good on him. Good on him
No, that's great.
to demand, not demand, to ask for substance in response to a talking point.
That's
You want to,
really, yeah, with all the videos that are online, and sorry to interrupt you, with all the videos online, that's what I hate. It's like the cop out answer is that, oh, I'm not educated on this topic. So why are you here? Why are you talking
yeah,
about it?
yeah,
Exactly what your
yeah.
professor did.
And by the way, I mean, no, so I don't, so to be fair, there are topics that I feel like I could get behind, that I have a surface understanding of, that if you were to press me, I don't know that I would know a ton about, you know.
Right.
Even something like, for example, like if you were to tell, I do feel this is my perspective, and I'm open. I've changed my perspectives before, but like for example, that America needn't have been in Vietnam,
Okay.
right? I didn't think so. If someone were to push me, why didn't America need to be in Vietnam? Which battle in Vietnam do you really feel like America like really didn't have to be in it, that really suffered in? Like, why do you really? What makes you say that?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I just know as a general idea that a conflict between northern and southern Vietnam, communist and non-communist, that America did not have to send, hundreds of thousands of troops to die over there, and that's what I feel about it. Now, could the reality, is the reality more nuanced than that? Almost certainly. I don't know it, 100%. But I do have a take on it. So I don't want to make it seem like, like we're perfect and we don't make these kind of mistakes
Oh,
either,
for sure.
But I do think that there is obviously some kind of social currency that people are trading in on to fit in with, the crowd when they come to a protest, or they come to, to block a street or burn a flag or
Right.
whatever it is,
100%, dude. We all just gotta
it
come
kind of goes
together,
both
man.
ways. Seriously, I think that the death of a lot, what caused a lot of this, and the death of like rationality, came with the sound bits and reels. That happens now. When you have a news story that's 3 minutes and there's no chance to get into a more in-depth conversation, or most people are getting their news from 30 second to 2 minute video, TikTok videos. Where how enlightened can you possibly be on a topic, but you're exposed to enough to feel passionate about it?
Exactly. 100%. I don't know. You can't. I mean, on that note, I do have to.
Awesome. All right, dude. Well, thanks for coming together. Thanks for doing
Yeah,
this.
it's a good tagline.
Cheers, l'chaim.
L'chaim, dude.
And I will see you again
Next week.
soon, dude. Catch you on Friday for drinks, dude. I'll catch you, all
Catch you
right?
on Friday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.